Diane, the year is 2023. I'm playing a new game based on a TV show that aired in 1990, made to look like it was built for a console that released in 1995. That game, it happens to be called Twin Peaks Into the Night, made by a couple French indie devs known as the Blue Rose team. Now right off the bat, the concept for this game is a little strange. It seems to be targeting a demographic that has nostalgia for the original seasons of Twin Peaks, the PlayStation 1, and retro survival horror games like Silent Hill. A pretty small group, you might assume, but hey, I enjoyed all those things in the past, so I decided to give it a spin. But before I get started, I have to mention that the game uses quite a lot of music and footage straight from the show, so I'll have to be a little judicious on what I show you here. I mean, I wouldn't want to incur the wrath of David Lynch.
And if you can believe it, it's a Friday once again.
Speaking of footage, the game opens up to a musical introduction set to a spattering of clips throughout the show, with a bit of dialogue thrown in. Think of it like a Twin Peaks AMV, but a little less cursed.
In Japan, the entire country seems to have gone crazy over the show, which has become a national obsession.
After that, we're presented with the title screen, a faithful recreation of the show's infamous highway signpost, albeit much crunchier than I remember. When we start a new game, we're presented with a second intro, another clip show, but this one narrates the setup for the first episode. Immediately after that, we get a third introductory scene where we see our hero Dale Cooper driving towards Twin Peaks while he rattles off basic elements of his day into a tape recorder. And to cap it all off, the game gives us the fourth consecutive introduction where we see a PS1-esque recreation of the show's intro, low poly birds and all. After about 10 minutes of various introductions with no gameplay, save for the dialogue options in the car, we're finally granted control of Agent Cooper outside the hospital. We can wander around, talk to NPCs with portraits straight from the show, examine background objects for pointless descriptions, you know, all that classic survival horror stuff. And much like those nostalgic titles, we're presented with the evergreen fixed camera angles and tank controls. It just wouldn't be a PS1 horror throwback without them, huh? Mostly standard stuff here, but I did like that they decided to include a working mirror in the elevator. I can only assume that the mirror isn't truly a reflection, but instead a flipped duplication of the room, which is how Silent Hill pulled it off back in the day. Anyways, we meet our police buddy, Sheriff Harry S. Truman, inside the hospital. We get some cutscenes where Cooper and Harry talk, and I'm really not sure what they did for the voices here.
Have any trouble finding the place?
No, that should be fine.
It's been quite a while since I saw the original seasons of Twin Peaks, so I'm not quite sure if these are the same voices that are in the show. They could be voice actors doing pretty close impressions, or maybe even AI. I mean, there were some times where the dialogue felt a little bit stilted, but maybe I was just hearing things.
Stopped at a little place called the Lamplighter Inn. Had a slice of cherry pie. Incredible.
Anyways, the first patient we see is Ronette Pulaski, who looks like her face got smushed in, just like all the other NPCs. After that, we go to check out the victim at the center of this whole mystery, Laura Palmer, no relation to Arnold. You don't get to see much of her underneath the bedsheet, but I did find it interesting that they made her hair a texture on the bed itself. I personally love these kinds of inventive solutions developers come up with to work within a set of restrictions, like emulating PS1 aesthetics. But moving on, we do a little bit of gameplay by combining tweezers with a sanitizer, just like you would in the classics. And if I hadn't already seen the show, I would have never thought to use the tweezers on her fingernails to discover a random piece of paper, but here we are. Immediately after the exam is done, we're teleported to the mysterious world of the Black Lodge, a sort of twisted parallel dimension in the Twin Peaks universe. Again, I don't remember if the Black Lodge comes up this early in the show, but I'd assume that it doesn't get as much airtime as the game gives it here. Inside, we wander around some red rooms to solve a basic puzzle with a featureless statue that's missing something. If you guessed arms or a face like I did, you'd be wrong. It actually needs a necklace we just haven't found yet. Like before, if I hadn't seen the show, I'd have no idea where the doors actually were in this part. I mean, does this look like a door to you? How about this? Or this? Does it look like you can exit here? Yeah, it's pretty confusing. After wandering around for a while, we stumble across the necklace and bring it back to the statue. Then we get to enter the infamous sitting room where the alternate reality Laura Palmer speaks to us in reverse. The screen cuts to black, and we're presented with a musical number from the show, this time with some low-res performers instead of another clip show. When the music ends, we're shown a scene of Dale Cooper standing across the street from the infamous Double R Diner. Despite his longing for a cherry pie and a cup of black coffee, all we get is some flashes of the Black Lodge before the game fades to black. And that's where the demo for Twin Peaks Into the Night ends. A truly strange experience all around. Like I said before, the overlap between Twin Peaks fans and people who are into retro horror PS1 indie recreations seems pretty small. I mean, the devs did a good job of recreating these scenes as they would appear in a PS1 game, but what's the point? It's obvious that they're huge fans of the series, and this is clearly a passion project, but even if you're squarely in the target demographic for this game, I didn't find much compelling reason to play it. Wandering around Twin Peaks has some value, I suppose, but over half of the runtime was cutscenes, many of which were taken straight from the TV show. The most gameplay I experienced was combining two items in the hospital and placing a necklace on a statue in the Black Lodge. The original run of Twin Peaks is a highly cinematic, often meandering experience that doesn't seem to really translate well to a video game. Sure, there's artistic merit in recreating this show in such a restrictive, nostalgic style, but it's more interesting to appreciate from a distance. But who knows? Maybe they'll expand on this some more and actually have something that's interesting to play down the line. So props to the devs for making their passion project, and as for everyone else, go watch Twin Peaks if you haven't already. It's a truly weird yet somehow wonderful show if you give it the time. But that's enough strange fan games of 30-year-old shows for now. I should probably work on a slightly more popular video subject next, unless I want the algorithm to banish my channel into obscurity. So until next time, have a good one, folks.